This is made possible by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
A pleasant good night to you and welcome to another edition of The People's Business. I'm your host, Shane Seeley, and tonight we have a good one for you. We're going to focus on the NIS and the way forward. There have been many robust discussions over the past few weeks, and we're going to continue a bit of that right here on tonight's show. And we have some of those who were at the center of those discussions with us tonight. Kim Tudor, the director of the National Insurance Scheme, is in the house, along with Derek Osborne, the actuary for the NIS. So stick around. For you callers, we know that you'll have your questions. Those numbers to call, we'll give you them a bit later on, but just hold strain for now as we talk about the NIS and the way forward. We'll be back in a moment. Back with you on The People's Business as we focus on the NIS and the way forward. So a scene setter for you. We've had a number of weeks of some robust discussion. We've had town hall meetings. We've had media conferences focusing on the NIS, where it is at now, and some of the things that need to be done. The public has had their input as well. People have put forward some very good suggestions, according to some senior officials at the NIS, for where the National Insurance Scheme needs to go and what needs to be done to encourage more people to invest in their future through the NIS. Again with us tonight, Kim Tudor, the director, and Derek Osborne, who are going to help to put it into perspective. After all of these great suggestions, it's time to focus on the outcome of the national consultation. Kim, I want to come to you first to talk about some of those meetings that we've seen played out over the past few weeks. Give me your take on the back and forth, the sharing of information on the NIS, where it is at now, and where people and where the team there with you at the NIS would like it to go.
Certainly, Shane. Good evening, good to see you, and good evening to the listeners. I look forward to a robust discussion as well tonight. Shane, if I could just recap and just say that we received the 17th actuarial report earlier this year, and it's required by law that the NIS funds are subject to an actuarial review every 3 years. The recommendations in this report were very similar to the past, but the time frame in which the fund could be depleted had drawn up. And we felt that we needed to do the responsible thing and share this information with the public. The fund is our fund. It is a fund that seeks to provide for all of us Barbadians and those who work here in Barbados with us. And so we thought that we would share this information with the public. And that is what we did. The public reacted and gave us some very good suggestions. They were concerned a bit about things to do with governance, the state of our audits, and so forth, and rightly so. But we were pleased with the suggestions that they made in how we could go forward. So I don't want to preempt our discussions, but certainly one of the things that we heard from Barbadians, that they do not wish the retirement age to work to 72. So we've heard that very, very clearly. And that's a part of a wider decision, but we haven't made any decisions as yet. We not only had town hall meetings, but we had drop boxes, suggestion boxes throughout the island at the various post offices and at NIS. And you could also have you still can send your suggestions to suggestions at bginis.gov.bb. So going forward at the end of this month, so it's just a couple of days, we're going to start to compile these suggestions. But these suggestions from the public range from, as I said, admin, governance, investments, what the investment policies like, and so forth, to what they would want to see in a redesign or enhance or revitalized system.
Derek, I want to bring you in here to give your take on this national dialogue on the NIS. You are one of those who would have shared the NIS's position as well and accepted some of the feedback from the general public. What's your general take on how the consultation went?
Thank you, Shane, and good evening. Good evening, Barbados. It's really clear, Shane, that Barbadians want their NIS. They believe in the NIS, and they want to make sure that when it's their turn to get a pension, especially, that the NIS will be there and it will be strong for the rest of their life and for their children and grandchildren. And so, we've heard the passion, we've heard many solutions. Of course, you're going to hear some people with complaints and stories that their own stories. But for the most part, especially in the last few days, we are converging into a good set of ideas and solutions on board selection, on chairman, on investment committee being independent. We have ideas about service, about benefits. As Kim said, the pension age is certainly up there. We've heard about the contribution rate. And we've heard the things we really look forward to hearing before a small team of people goes into putting heads together to find a Barbados solution for this Barbados problem.
As an actuary, what are some of those more viable solutions that you've heard put forward or that have come to the forefront?
Right. So there's some design issues and there's some governance issues. Right? So governance issues ensure that going forward, that some of the concerns that people have today won't be there. For example, disclosures, on-time transparency, financial statements, and so on. In terms of design, there really aren't too many levers that we can pull. We have to find a way to balance the income of the fund through contributions and investment income with expenditure on benefits. And right now, we have benefits exceeding contributions by about $200 million, and that gap is set to widen. So we have to find a way to reduce the long-term cost of pensions, possibly increase contributions slightly, but the goal certainly is to find a way to ensure that those at the lower income level are able to receive enough funds from the NIS or from the government that can provide them that basic living standard and a certain quality of life in Barbados. Above that, we have to find ways to make sure that benefits are equitable, that they're fair, and that they're affordable. And so, the dialogue is there. This is happening all around the world. Barbados is one of many countries with an aging population, rising cost of social programs. And so we have to find the priorities of Barbadians, what they value most, what they're interested in, and probably tweaking a little bit to find a solution that fits.
Kim, as the director of the NIS, you would have inherited a situation coming on from the former administration. Talk a bit about what you inherited and how we got to this position as far as the national insurance scheme is concerned. Not that it happened overnight, but this is something that took some time, and of course, then there was COVID-19. Put it into perspective for us.
Well, definitely. So the major problem that the NIS is facing is a structural problem. Yes, there are things that we can do to enhance governance and things that we definitely can do to enhance the administration and service. But the key is the is the structure. We, as Derek had said, this year I anticipate that I will pay out $300 million more than I take in. And that has been happening since I would say 2000 and then going back to 2014 and so forth. We are paying out a lot more. So we've seen a decline in the numbers of contributors. So there's a decline in the Barbados population and consequently a decline in the number of contributors. Whether these contributors are self-employed or there are employees. And as you know, after COVID, some businesses have not yet recovered. Small businesses, certain kinds of businesses were very vulnerable to what happened in COVID and to the shutdown and not being able to revitalize themselves as yet. So the biggest issue is the structure. How do we restructure it so that Barbadians can still get the benefits that they enjoy? Um, and pay, maybe possibly look at what we can do with the contribution rate. So we know that we don't want to change the contribution rate. You don't want to change the benefits. Then what can we do? So this is the hard question that we are dealing with, but it's a structural problem. And the thing is that, as Derek says, most pension plans and most NIS face this situation where the assumptions that you make, because we have to project 40 years into the future, 50 years into the future. So the assumptions that you make don't always hold. So we know that there can be a COVID. We had never seen a pandemic in our lives, so we now can factor in the impact of that. We had anticipated that in 2022, our population, we would have had 30,000 more persons contributing to the scheme over that from 2004 when we did the pension reform. At that time, we had anticipated that there would be 30,000 more than there are right now. And so you could see the impact that if we had 30,000, we wouldn't be talking about this. So the biggest issue, Shane, in getting here is the structural issues. There are some administrative issues, and there are some governance issues that we need to look at, and we assure the public that we are going to look at that. So certainly when we look at the redesign and how we design the system to go forward, the governance will be looked at, the admin will be looked at. So those will not be left untouched in terms of looking at the new design. But it's more of a structural problem that has gotten us here and not an administrative problem or a governance problem.
Well, there are a number of things there. You're going to need to get more money being pumped into the NIS to support the future. And doing that possibly by increasing the rate may not go down well with most persons. And then casting a wider net to capture more people to contribute to the NIS. That is still a problem because you then have to convince some of those self-employed persons to want to be a part of the future of the NIS. And that has always been a challenge. So these are some of the things that we'll be also touching on tonight. For you viewers, remember those numbers to call, 228-5562, 228-5563. So we'll wait to hear from you as well, as we know that you'll have your questions and comments as we look at the NIS and the way forward, the way to the future for the National Insurance Scheme. We'll take a break and we'll be back in a moment. We're focusing on the NIS and the way forward as we look to the future and see how we can build out a stronger and more resilient NIS to cater to the needs of Barbadians. With us, Kim Tudor and Derek Osborne, the Director and the Actuary for the NIS respectively. So Both of you mentioned a couple of things, and we're going to get back to those after this caller. We have the callers in already. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment?
You are the panel.
Good night.
To Kim, a former co-worker of mine. This is Gregory Kim. And to Kim and Derek, I hope the NIS means merit. And as today Sunday, God bless the NIS. But I can't talk about the scheme, but it seems that they're going to carry it to 70. And what I'm bothered about is that with the employers taking out, not paying any fees, and then with the politicians taking out the money, what has me nervous is that they're going to spell out his name, the initials, not his service.
Thank you, caller, for your comment there. And that is one of the main concerns the caller mentioned there about getting employers to pay in the funds that they're supposed to the NIS. And we've heard this across the board, both the public and lesser so more so the private than the public sector. Are we still seeing a pattern where employers are not paying in the dues for their employees to the NIS?
I wouldn't say that is a pattern. I think that when employers have cash flow challenges, regrettably, they put NIS on the back burner. So we do know that we have an issue with compliance both for the employers and the self-employed. And as we go forward, that is one of the things that we are going to be working on. During the budgetary proposals in March, the Prime Minister issued an amnesty, and we had 198 employers come in and put a payment plan in place to the tune of about $22 million, which they owed. And once they're able to pay off that, we would waiver the interest, some portion of that. If they're able to complete it within the 2 years, we will waive the entire interest. And if they're not able to complete in the 2 years, then we would waive probably 90%, 70%. So that was to the tune of 22 million. But we don't want employers to wait until that happens. We want them to come forward and proactively enter discussions and negotiations with us. Equally, we're going to step up our compliance in terms of early notification to employers that we haven't seen the payments. On the other hand, as I've been saying, we do have a portal, and employees as well as self-employed persons can register on the portal, and you can check the portal on a monthly basis, a weekly basis, a daily basis if you have that time, and check to see that your employer is making the payments for you. So we do recognize that we want to step up our efforts in terms of compliance. And we will be doing so, but we'll be doing so in a kind of collaborative mode, because we want employers to come forward and to pay. And as you said, Shane, we want persons to do it voluntarily.
And you mentioned those were 2022 statistics. How many of those employers now remain in that delinquent segment? How many are now still delinquent? If you could answer that.
I don't have the exact number for you, Shane, and in terms of how many, the number.
Or what
But
percentage?
what I can say is that the outstanding or the arrears at this point is no more than like 3 months benefits. So it is not as significant as the public may think.
Right.
Persons are making an effort to pay, and I think a lot of that arrears is old arrears from companies who may be in receivership and things like that. So I think employers are making the effort to be current.
What is the NIS empowered to do to force those, like, to make sure that those who are supposed to pay will pay? Is there something which will be put in place to address that going forward?
Yes, Shane, there is something in place right now. So the Act allows us to charge 1% on the balance outstanding. And in addition to those outstanding contributions, we are allowed to secure it by a judgment certificate. That judgment certificate prohibits employers from borrowing money from registered financial institutions without paying the outstanding balance or making some kind of arrangement with NIS. So if you owe for an outstanding amount of time, you've made no arrangements with us, you've ignored all our warnings, we can go forward for a judgment certificate against the business. And we
Thank
have
you.
several active judgments in place.
Thanks for clearing that up for us, Kim. Derek, is it things like these that hurt the NIS's viability in terms of its plans and what it needs to do going forward?
Yes, certainly. Compliance, contributions is the main source of income. And compliance comes in two forms. You have employers who deduct and don't hand over, and you have employers who totally don't deduct and don't hand over. And so it makes it tough to forecast. And in the last few years, we've seen a number of employers with COVID maybe facing difficulty. Hence the projections we have this time, are less optimistic than in the past. And part of it could be because of compliance issues that have surfaced in the last few years. And so hopefully, I really believe that with the dialogue we've had for the last three weeks, the energy that people have with their NIS, I think we will see a step up at the NIS in terms of improving compliance. And more, if we can build the confidence among employers, and especially those in formal sector and self-employed workers, who understand the value of paying NIS, and NIS can show them, like during COVID, there's $150 million paid out in unemployment benefits. The people lost their job for 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 25 weeks. NIS was there, and if we can show the informal sector workers that even when COVID hit, the government had to step in to give them some support. NIS could be there for them when they get sick, when they have a baby, or when they get old.
And that's the question there. How do you capture those who are self-employed and not employed in the formal network of employment in Barbados? How do you get them to want to contribute to a national insurance scheme when they are hearing that there are some challenges ahead and bumps in the road?
So first of all, education, and show them the value of contributing, try to build the trust, and also make it easier for them to contribute. Right now, there's a requirement for a form. They must pay every month, and they must pay a certain amount. We need to find a way to have them just pay as often as they want, as much as they want, and to pay online, to transfer electronically, make it really, really simple for them. So education, transparency, showing them what their balances are, showing them what their projected benefits are going to be, what they may need to top up further to get a bigger benefit, and provide them that confidence that with improved governance, with improved systems, and with improved administration, that their benefit will be secure and they can look forward to a secure income in old age.
All right, okay, we have another caller on the line. Let's welcome them to the People's Business. Good night, caller. Welcome. What's your question or comment?
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Hello, good night. Is this to me?
Good night.
Hello?
Hi, what's your question or comment?
Oh, my question is, I am still a bit confused at this retirement age, and I would like to know at present, is it 65 or 67? And the reason for that is, I am hearing two different things, and I would like to know if your employer send you home when you reach 65, and you go to NIS and they say that it's supposed to be 67, what recourse do we have? Because if you go when it's supposed to be 67 and your company send you home at 65, then you have to sit down and wait another 2 years. and this needs to be addressed. So what recourse do we have if your company, your employer, will send you home at 65?
Thank you, caller, for your question. So who wants to take that? There seems to be some level of confusion between the ages there, 65 or 67, when you are liable for that pension or when the pension is supposed to kick in. And what happens if the employer sends you home 2 years early?
I'll take it. So right now, the flexible ages for accessing the old age pension, as early as age 60 and any age thereafter. So 67 is what we call the pensionable age at which you get a full pension that is unreduced. Anything before age 67 is reduced by the number of years that you are below 67. So if you have stopped working and you're 61 or 63 or 65, you can go to NIS and they'll run the numbers for you and they'll tell you if you qualify today what the amount would be. They'll also tell you if you wait till 67 what the amount would be. The amount would be higher at 67 than at an earlier age. Further than that, if you claim after 67, which is 68, 69, 70, it's actually increased above the age 67 pension. So NIS really offers the old age pension at any age from 60 and above. But you have to stop working if you're under 67.
So what would have happened in that situation? The caller seems to be concerned that they would not have been able to be eligible to get that payment from 65 years of age and possibly having to wait an additional 2 years. Where would that confusion come? Because as you said, Derek, they're still eligible to get something. It would be reduced. But he seems to be saying that he was not eligible, or he felt like he was not eligible to get anything at all.
Right. The two things, I think we've heard that some people are being encouraged to wait, but also if the formula pension works out to be less than the minimum, then under current rules, you won't qualify at 63 or 65. So possibly in this case, when they run the numbers and they do the reduction, it falls below the $243 per week. If that's the case, then he has to wait. But if it's above $243 per week, the pension can begin right away.
Kim, I think you may want to add to that as well. Let's do it after the break. We'll take a quick pause and then we'll have some other callers on the line as well with some more questions and comments. So you'll take that break and we'll be back in a few moments. We're focusing on the NIS tonight on the People's Business with the Director Kim Tudor and Actuary Derek Osborne. Kim, I know you may have wanted to add to that comment there about what was happening where the pensioner was concerned about not getting the money at 65 and probably being told instead to wait to 67. We'll get that from you in a matter of moments, but let's first take another call here on the line with us on the People's Business. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment? Good night.
I'm wondering if they don't have inspectors coming around again. I worked in a company and the inspector used to come around to check the books and make sure that everything is okay. Another thing, if a man pays widow and pension for his wife, at his passing, why does the wife benefit from that? Those are my two questions. Thank you.
And thank you for your questions there to our panel. Kim, do you want to take that one?
Yes, I'll take. I think I'd let Derek take a part of that. But as you were saying that you wanted me to weigh in on the previous caller, and I want to say yes that the inspectors are still in place, and the inspectors still come around. So yes, that facility is in place, and we are going to enlarge that force that persons can get the support and the help that and the guidance that they may need that they have been accustomed to getting from the employers. With regard to the other caller, the previous caller, I would say that it underscores the need for education and how important education for all of us is with regard to our pensions. An employer cannot arbitrarily send you home at 65. You cannot arbitrarily. I think that what happens is that we don't pay any attention to retirement until we are about to retire. So somewhere in the handbook, in some part of your company's regulations, it would have indicated when the pension age was. I have worked at organizations and I know they had an early pension age and whatever when I was a young person. I had no idea. I still have no idea what the age was because at 25, it didn't really concern me. So the age is somewhere there and the age is what you would have signed up for. So at 65, you and the employer would have agreed that that was the pension age. Now, when you come to NIS, as Derek would have said, we're going to tell you what you are entitled to. We aren't going to tell you if you should wait or not. We are going to tell you what you are entitled to. Whether you should wait or whether you should take it now depends on your own circumstances. But we will guide you into telling you what you are eligible for at that point in time. And as Derek said, the only way that you would not qualify at 65 for what could be described and what is described as a reduced pension is if your reduced pension fell below the minimum. So I think that you might want to relook that with us again to see what was the issue, what you qualified for, or what you didn't qualify for. But I don't think that your employer can send you home arbitrarily at 65. Um,
And I
Derek,
think, right, Derek was going to handle the other side of that question.
Can you please repeat? I missed.
this is the widows and off the widows and so forth. So I think what we would call it the survivors benefit.
Right. Yeah. So there is a benefit in place. So if and it could happen if an active person dies and there's a spouse and children, or a pensioner dies, if there's a spouse, then there could be a benefit payable depending on the age of the spouse, depending on the presence of children who are under school age, and also depending on their income. So the benefit exists, but there are eligibility conditions that have to be met for it to be paid.
What are some of those eligibility conditions?
Also, the deceased person must have made at least contributions for 3 years, and depending on the age of the spouse, it could be a pension for 1 year if it's under 50, or pension for life if they're over 50 at time of death.
And only the spouse can take advantage of that? What about children? Do children
Qualify.
Children also qualify if they're under, I think it's 16, and if they're still in school, it's a little bit older. I can confirm. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that clarity. We have another caller on the line. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment?
I'm calling about a question. My husband worked 48 years in government, and he plans to retire at 65 next year. How he will not be able to get his full pension? before he gets 67?
So there's a formula. Thank you for the question. So there's a formula, and you run the formula. If he wants to start at age 65, it will be 12% less than if he waited until 67. So the age for full pension is 67. If he claims at 65, it is reduced by 12%.
I think the caller's concern is that, and she mentioned that right at the top, that her husband would have worked for 48 years in the civil service. So we're thinking that someone has worked that number of years, that amount of time in one job and making those contributions, they would believe that they should be entitled to a full pension even at 65. But it doesn't work that way, does it?
Well, in this case, maybe we can assume that the person is pensionable from the government. And so what may happen is that the pension from government may start first, and he can wait until 67 to get the full NIS.
48 years of contributions, close to 50 years of contributions.
Years.
But we also have to remember, right, that NIS is a social security system,
Right.
based on solidarity, right? And so we want to make that whenever you work, you contribute, or whenever it's your turn to get. So, for example, unemployment I mentioned earlier, 2 years ago, many people got back a lot more money in benefits than they ever put into the scheme, right? And so some people put in more, some people lived till age 95, some people died at age 68 or 69. And so the idea is society is better off when you have a system that's adequately funded and provides benefits whenever people need it, right? And so in this particular case, he's given great service to the government for 48 years, and he can choose to take it at 65 or wait until 67.
When do you think that we'll see some of the, obviously there's a think tank that will go in, you'll have a number of ideas and proposals before you know, you go in, you mull over those. When do you think some concrete decisions will start to come forward? How long will that process take now? Go ahead,
I'm
Kim.
thinking, certainly, we're going to work with a time frame going forward for the rest of the year, because once the think tank gets working and has some concrete suggestions, that has to go through some processes. We would want to do a bit of peer review in terms of looking at what IDB and so forth have done with other countries. We would want ISA, which Barbados is a member, that's the Institute of Social Securities Association. We would want them to kind of peer review what you have done. So we want to go through a couple of processes and share with some actuaries in the association, the CFA, and persons like that. And then we come back to the public, hear some options and so forth. So that will take some time, but we are going to work assiduously to kind of shorten that time. Maybe within a couple of months at the most.
A couple is two, so probably into the new year, we will see some concrete things being put forward, possibly into the new year.
No, definitely before the year end.
Okay. Well, we'll look to hear more on that. One contentious proposal that was put forward, and I think we all heard it, and you mentioned it right at the top as well, Kim, that working to an older age, 72. That seemed not to sit well with the public. You think that is one, say the actuaries sit down and say, well, the only way this could happen is if people work a bit longer. Is that a deal breaker, you would think?
Well, we Barbadians have strong feelings about it, so we certainly are going to take that into consideration. As Derek would have said earlier, there are not many levers that you can pull. So we have declining contributors. If we can have a solution in that regard, then that helps. But it is not off the table. But again, Derek had mentioned the Solidarity Fund. It's a part of the social security system for Barbados. And the key thing is that it's a part of a holistic. I think Barbadians are concerned that I don't want to work until I am 72 because one, I want to enjoy some retirement. People were also concerned that people's health may not hold up and so forth. So all of these things we have to take into consideration. You know, we have some NCDs, so we have to be working to make sure we are healthier and so forth. So it's a holistic thing that we have to look at with regard to raising the pension age. But it was interesting. I was listening to another program and they were talking about the pension age. And one contributor said that, you don't want it to increase. And then when you do get to retirement, people do all sorts of other activities, including employment again, and keep themselves busy. So it
Right.
means that they may not want to work full time in a very structured way, but they still want to contribute. But we do bear that 72 or any other age past 67 in mind. But let me reiterate that no decisions have been made on that as yet. But that certainly is one of the levers that must be looked at and will be looked at in the redesign.
As we're referring
And
to
the other point I'd like to
go
make
ahead,
here
Derek. You wanted to add to that?
is that if the age is adjusted, even to 68, it won't happen right away, and it won't affect people who are around the corner from 67. So if you think back to pension reform in 2004, the age was increased by 2 years, from 65 to 67. It took 12 to 14 years to get there. There was a half year increase every, I think, 3 or 4 years.
3 years.
So even if it goes to 68, it will not happen overnight, and it will be phased in over a period of time. So people who are already in their 60s would hardly be affected by that, you know? So we have many countries in the world who have set pension ages to increase over a 25-year period, right? So it won't be an age that affects people right away. And I think we have to be clear on that. Because I've seen the jokes, you know, we've seen the memes, we've seen the stories, right? But it won't happen. And it definitely won't affect people probably who are in our age group or who are already working when it comes to 72.
We have another caller, and then we have a comment from Facebook as well that I'll give you both a chance to take a look at. But first, let's go to the phone lines. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment?
Good night. I overheard Mr. Osborne just now when a lady said that her husband was going to be 65 next year or next month or something like that. And he was saying that the person would lose 12% if they take early pension.
12.5%.
Right, okay. My concern is that with the company that I worked with, they're sending you home at 65. They retire you at 65. I have to wait till 67 now to get pension. Because if I do early pension, I was going to lose the percentage. But the thing about it is that the company I worked with send you home at 65. If you don't want to go home at 65, you still have to go because that is their rule that you go home at 65. So what happens there now? Because I'm going to be home now 2 years sitting down, doing nothing, have to wait to 67 to get full pension. And that I want to go home is that they send you home at 65.
Right. So thanks for the question, caller. And I think to the full pension and the reduced pension, the difference is the amount, right? You don't have to wait. If your targeted pension is more than the 243 per week, you can take it early. So again, depending on your circumstance, if you have the resources for your company pension and your own savings, that can give you 2 years of life and you can live off those two sources, then you can wait. If you can't afford to wait, then you can choose to take the early pension if the amount is above 243 per week.
I guess a lot of people just don't want to lose out that 12% because,
But it's 2 years, right? Mm-hmm. So think about it, Shane. Mm-hmm. You aren't really losing. You're getting 24 months worth of a slightly smaller pension. I heard a pension expert the other day say that he advises anybody who asks him to take NIS as early as possible. Because if you think about the reduction, it's 6% for every year, but right. NIS also increases pensions every January. there's a cost of living adjustment that's given in January of each year, in most years, right?
So just to
And
be
so
clear,
if you think about it, it didn't happen this year, it didn't happen last year during
right?
COVID, but in the previous year it happened, right? So if you think about it, yes, you're losing 12% of the pension for the rest of your life, but you are getting 24 additional months of pension.
Okay. Well, the math
So,
may
it's
work.
right. And some people, it may have advantage. Those who live very, very long may end up, having a smaller pension at 95. But you never know. And that's why the option is available to everybody.
Okay, this is the Facebook comment that I was referring to. Abiola Cummins, good night to you. Thanks for your contribution. She's asking if an employee dies and the employer is not current with the contributions, would the spouse be eligible to benefit? What happens there?
Right. The lovely thing about the survivor's benefit is that the requirement is not a current one. It's at least, I think it's 150 weeks ever. So that's is a very a low threshold to pass. So even if that person had not worked for 5, 10 years, but they made sufficient long time ago, she would still qualify, and the children will qualify if they meet the other conditions.
And Kim, you wanted to add to that there?
No, I think that Derek answered that.
Okay. Well, let's take a break and come back and get some final comments on the NIS and what we're looking to do going into the future to make sure that we have a viable NIS for all. We'll be back in a few moments. The NIS and the way forward has been the focus of this edition of the People's Business. We've had some great discussion tonight and of course some help in understanding everything that is going on and the way forward with the director Kim Tudor and also Derek Osborne, the actuary for the NIS. We have another caller on the line and we'll welcome in a couple more calls before we get those final comments. Good night, welcome to the People's Business caller. What's your question or comment?
Yes, I was wondering if the non-contributory part of the NIS can be taken to welfare and stop raising the age of those persons who are paying the contribution. Has the National Insurance thought about that?
Certainly, Shane. It certainly can because it's not paid by NIS. NIS administers it, but it's paid by the government. So probably through their welfare funds, they already do that. So it is not the contributory persons contributing are not paying for the non-contributory. It's not coming from those funds.
Well, caller, I hope that answers the question there for you, getting some clarity on that non-contributory side of things. Another caller is on the line in waiting. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question?
Good night. I want to ask my question and then I would hang up and listen to the response. Is that okay?
That's fine. Perfect.
Okay. My question is, I've been working with a company for 42 years. Okay? I'm 65 now and the company is restructuring. I'm one that has been sent home. so I opt for early pension. I'm wondering, when I get 67, would I get the extra benefits that I'm losing out now at 65?
Yeah, great question from the caller. And the short answer is no. So the reduced pension is payable for the rest of your life, but subject to those small cost of living adjustments that occur most years. So the choice you make is to take a smaller pension for a longer period, or you take a larger pension for a shorter period. So I mentioned 24 months of extra payments. So those 24 months of extra payments, at a smaller amount, essentially make up for the larger payment for a shorter period. But the short answer is no. There's no adjustment at 67.
Okay. We have another caller on the line. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question?
Good night. I have a question. There are persons who work in, let's say, in government. There's a scale whereby you have the scale from S1, where that person is paid $12,943, and at the scale of Z7, that person is paid $4,712.32, but yet both persons pay the same NIS, which is about $474. I believe that the person working for the greater salary should be contributing more than the person who's working for the least salary, and some adjustment should be made to that effect.
Well, thank you for that proposal, really. Is that something that came up in our consultations?
Well, Derek will go into this more fully, but you remember the cap is 4,800. So we're not looking at anything after 4,800. We would imagine that the person who is in S1 is putting some additional money somewhere as the person who is in Z7 or whatever number he mentioned. But the cap is $4,800.
And that earnings limit works on both the contribution side and the benefit side, right? So you don't contribute above the earnings limit, but benefits are not calculated above either, right? They're capped at that $4,880 per month.
But
the reason for that, go ahead, Shane.
No, go ahead. Explain the reason for that, if you can.
So again, it's a social security system. It's not designed to provide all the benefits that one needs in old age. And so the thinking is to provide that basic pension, that basic safety net for everyone. And so we would expect that people who are higher paid would be able to provide for themselves through either their employer pension or their own savings. Right? So we leave space for the private sector to manage and administer pension plans. And so just to be clear again, those folks who make more than the earnings limit don't contribute above the earnings limit, but neither do they benefit above the earnings limit. So the system is fair.
Thank you so much for answering that caller's question. I mean, I think a lot of people are concerned about what pension and what kind of remuneration they would get once they reach 65, 67 or beyond. And I think there has, along with the education about the NIS, I think there needs to be general advice about how people can go about basically creating a better pension plan for all of them. And I have a question, I'll finish it because I'll let the caller, there's another caller on the line, let them get in their question and I'll finish that comment in a matter of moments. Caller, welcome to the People's Business. What's your question?
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Yes, some persons are saying that when they reach 65, they have to go home. But I guess when they go into work, they don't understand that they have a book with rules of the company. So as the company says you retire at 65, you made an option. You will take early or you will go home and wait. So it's one or the other, but it is not government that's saying that you leave at 65. It's the companies. So what happens going forward with SDAs goes up, the companies will have to redo their plan or whatever has to be done. Thank you.
Caller, thank you for your comment. But one caller did mention the company restructuring and changing their plans for their employees midstream. So that can happen. So that there alone is a balancing act, something that can change from time to time. It's not the norm, but it can happen. But I was mentioning, you mentioned, Kim, in the top, it's about education and about letting people know how the NIS can better work for them. But there are other options along with the NIS. What would you advise a person generally going forward in terms of, yes, you make your payments to the NIS, make sure that you do your part and contribute to the scheme. But there has to be another solution as well in terms of another solution for the individual.
Absolutely, Shane. So going forward, people have to see NIS as a part of their savings for retirement. As you know, I think it was late last year, because I was there, for reduce the age of entry into their association from 50 to 40. And the
Right.
primary driving force behind that was the need to educate persons and prepare them for retirement. And pretty much you're saying it's never too early, but certainly we felt there when we were at bar that you should start preparing as early as you can, and therefore the age went down. And I think these conversations that we having shows that we all need to better understand and better prepare for
Indeed.
our retirement. And COVID showed that you could even have plans in place and good plans, and then you can have a COVID that could impact on it significantly. Like the lady faced retrenchment at the time she did not plan for it, and so forth. So NIS will certainly work with the insurance company, the persons, investment people, pension
Right.
plans, to really put a comprehensive education program out there in terms of helping Barbados. I mean, Shane, we have become a more affluent and more able to look after ourselves to a large degree. And so therefore we're going to help people to develop further by putting a retirement plan in place and relying less on the state. So NIS is going to be one plank of it. So the caller
Yeah.
mentioned that some people may be working for, let's say it's $10,000. NIS will give you a pension up to 48, but then you still have the other 5,000, that some portion of that you also have to invest or save for your retirement if you
Yeah,
want
indeed,
to
Kim.
maintain a lifestyle at a certain level as you go into retirement. You know, I heard, I cannot remember who it was mentioned, that the central bank does have
Yeah.
um,
Kim,
some of the
unfortunately, we have to leave
complications.
it there. Time is not on our side, but I really would like to have both of you back after some more of those deliberations and things are more concrete. Have both of you back so that we can further educate those viewers about what is happening with the National Insurance Scheme. Thank you for your time, Derek and Kim, and thank you for your time, viewers, for spending it with us here on The People's Business as we discussed the NIS and the way forward. I'm Shane Seeley. Good night.